This show didn't hit you all at once, but by the end, it left something that stuck. At first, Dragon Gate's Dead or Alive 2025 felt like one of those shows that was just going to just float by. A couple of short matches, some fun tags, nothing that really grabbed you. But little by little, it started to build, not with blowaway matches, but with choices that carried some weight. And by the end, between the title shakeups and that post match fallout in the cage, it actually meant something. Now, it didn't peak in the ring, but it left you sitting with it after the bell. Let's start with the most emotionally loaded moment of the night, which was the steel cage hair versus mask survival match. Now, I'll be honest, the match itself just didn't do much for me. These type of matches tend to feel overstuffed and overbooked, and this was no different. But the post match, that's where everything clicked. Madoka Kakuta turned on Yuki Yoshioka, helping Shun Skywalker cape and then joining Z-Brats. That's the twist that gave the whole show its emotional punch. And the haircut scene with Dragon Dia forced to cut Yuki's hair using his only good arm, now that was brutal, but that was quite the piece of storytelling that actually gave the show some weight. The match, though, I pretty much would give this just 2.5 stars. But the angle, that's what gave the show its staying power. From there, we had the Open the Dreamgate title match with Yamato versus Jason Lee. And this brought things back just at a more traditional pace. And to me, this match mostly delivered. Yamato retained in what felt like the most well-rounded in-ring match of the night. And there was some really good pacing, defined momentum shifts, and Jason Lee really sold the idea that he could pull this off. It was pretty much the kind of match that didn't need the overbooking or the noise, just control, tempo, and presence. That said, the finishing stretch didn't quite land as hard as it needed to, which took a little from the overall impact. Still, I thought this was a great match, and this is an easy 4 stars. Next up, the Triangle Gate title match with Natural Vibes versus Paradox brought a much needed injection of pace and cohesion. Natural Vibes and Paradox went at it with urgency, and this felt like the first match of the night where both sides were firing in sync. There were great dives, some tight exchanges, and some strong chemistry. Now, this wasn't a classic, but it was just plain fun to watch. The back and forth momentum gave it that edge of unpredictability, and it never overstayed its welcome. I would give this one 3.75 stars and one of the most watchable matches on this show. Following that was the Open of Brave Gate tournament final with UT versus Homare here. And this one here had some real spark. The match started off hot. It cooled a bit though in the middle and flashed enough promise to keep you interested. I did wish it had gone just a few minutes longer because there was more story to tell here. But UT winning, to me, did feel earned, and Homawari held his own throughout. For what it was, it landed well, even if it never quite took off. I give this one 3.5 stars. The 10-man tag with Gold Class and Bandito versus Paradox, Dom Fuji, Luis Monte, and Ultimo Dragon was pretty much just a crowd pleaser to me. Everyone got their moments. The pacing to me never dragged, and it did hit that sweet spot between nostalgia and wild energy. Nothing here was super compelling on its own, but it was structured just tightly enough to stay fun. Now, you could tell this was meant to get everybody involved and give the fans a break between title matches. I put this at 2.75 stars. Easy watch, no much harm done. The opening match with Hiho versus Ryo Tanaka, pretty much for what it was, did its job. Tanaka got the win and looked sharp with some good energy, and there were some nice counters and clean dives here as well. It's the kind of match that opens the show without asking much from the crowd. There was some story here, but it also had a nice rhythm and didn't overstay its welcome. This felt like a sign that Tanaka's on the rise, and Hiho gave him enough room to shine. I give this one a solid 3 stars. The 6-man tag between Z-Brats versus Mochizuki Dojo was pretty much a squash if you ask me. Little flash, couple of spots, and then it was over. Now, it didn't feel lazy per se, it just felt just unnecessary. It existed more to keep Z-Brats in the spotlight than actually deliver anything meaningful here. For that reason, this one gets 1 3/4 stars. Dragon Gate's Dead or Alive 2025 didn't blow the roof off early, but it slowly earned its impact. The wrestling was decent across the board, with a few bright spots, but what really stuck was the emotional payoff at the end. The post-match angle in the cage, that's the kind of stuff that you will remember longer than a bunch of 3-star matches. And even if the show had a soft open, it built just enough tension to justify the wait. I give this one a solid 8 out of 10. I would recommend this.